Every day you wake up is another blank page in the book of your life. But here's the problem. Some of us are just existing. We're not writing. We're not learning. We're not growing. We're repeating. The richest place in the world is not the oil fields of the Middle East, nor the diamond mines of Africa. It's the cemeteries filled with books never written, ideas never explored, and destinies never developed. Why? Because people stopped growing. They stopped learning, and they stopped reading. Your mind is your greatest weapon, and if you don't sharpen it daily, life will dull your potential. Reading reprograms the mind. Reading reprograms the mind. The human brain is the most powerful processor on earth, not because of what it knows, but because of what it can become. But here's the shocking truth. Most people are operating on old software, outdated belief systems, broken programming installed by failure, fear, and culture. Reading is how you rewrite that code. Reading is how you override limitations you never chose, but somehow live by. You were not born with fear. You were taught fear. You were not born with self-doubt. It was handed to you by someone who gave up on their dreams. And unless you read, unless you learn, those mental viruses will stay there, running silently, stealing your potential. Think about your phone. You don't keep using the same apps from 2010. Why? Because updates come to fix bugs, improve performance, and unlock new features. Now ask yourself, when was the last time you updated your mind? When was the last time you challenged your thinking, corrected a limiting belief, or downloaded a new perspective? That's what reading does. It updates the way you think, the way you react, and the way you interpret your reality. If you grew up around poverty, reading can teach you wealth. If you were surrounded by dysfunction, reading can teach you structure. If your past was filled with pain, reading can show you purpose. A book is not paper, it's access, it's transportation, it's transformation. When you read, you're not just collecting facts. You're building a new internal environment. You're planting ideas that grow into decisions, and those decisions become your destiny. Have you ever read something and felt like a light bulb exploded in your head? That's not just information, that's revelation. That's a shift. That's mental surgery. That's reprogramming. Let me give you an example from real life. There was a man who grew up in the inner city, surrounded by gangs, poverty, and survival. School was a joke. Everyone around him believed that hustling was the only way out. But one day, someone handed him a book. It was a book about business mindset and vision. He didn't even understand half of what he read, but something inside him clicked. He said, if this man could think like this, maybe I can too. That one book became a spark. That spark became hunger. That hunger led to more books, more knowledge, more skills. Years later, he's not only successful, he's teaching others how to escape the very trap he was born in. That's the power of reading. That's the power of reprogramming. Let me take it closer to home. Think about the way you talk to yourself. That inner voice that says, I'm not good enough. I'll never succeed. I'm too old. I'm not smart. Where did that voice come from? That voice was installed. And the only way to silence it is to override it. You do that by reading new voices. You do that by feeding your mind with truths that dismantle your lies. Every time you read something powerful, you install a new weapon into your mindset. Have you ever heard the phrase, garbage in, garbage out? That's not just about food. That's about your mental diet. What are you feeding your mind? Are you reading gossip, scrolling negativity, consuming junk? Or are you filling your brain with thoughts that elevate you, challenge you, and grow you? Reading isn't just something successful people do. It's one of the reasons they are successful. They read because they know their mind is their capital. They understand that every book is a meeting with a millionaire, a mentor, or a master strategist. Reading gives you access to people you could never meet in real life. It lets you learn in 10 days what took them 10 years. Look at your bookshelf. Is it a collection of transformation or a decoration of dust? You say you want to change your life. Have you changed your thinking? You say you want to be wealthy. Have you studied wealth? You say you want peace. Have you read about how to build inner stillness? If you don't like your results, don't just change your actions, change your thoughts. And reading is the gym where your thoughts work out. Every chapter you read is a rep for your brain. Every paragraph is resistance training for your belief system. Every sentence is a new spark that lights a fire you didn't know was inside you. Reading takes you places physically impossible to reach. You can be sitting in your small apartment, and in 10 pages, you're walking with CEOs, strategizing with world leaders, building empires in your imagination. That's not fantasy, that's mental preparation. You want to change your life? Start by changing your mind. And if you want to change your mind, start by feeding it better thoughts. Feed it truth, feed it wisdom, feed it vision. And where do you get that? You get it through reading. Because the day you pick up the right book is the day you put down the wrong mindset. Learning keeps you dangerous. Learning keeps you dangerous. That's a truth most people overlook. You want to know why so many people become irrelevant, overlooked, or easily replaceable? It's because they stopped learning. The moment you think you know enough is the exact moment life starts passing you by. Life rewards those who adapt, those who evolve, those who stay sharp. And learning is what keeps your edge sharp. When you're constantly learning, you don't just stay in the game, you start leading it. You walk into a room and people notice something different. It's not your clothes, it's not your car, it's your confidence. It's the way you speak, it's the way you process problems. That presence doesn't come from luck. It comes from knowledge. You see, learning keeps you dangerous because it upgrades your perspective. When everyone is panicking, you're thinking. When others are guessing, you're strategizing. When others are stuck in the past, you're preparing for the future. Because you've studied, because you've searched, because you've kept your mind in motion. And a moving mind is a dangerous thing to those who benefit from your ignorance. Think about this: the moment a lion stops hunting, it gets hungry. And when it stays hungry for too long, it dies. Your mind works the same way. If it's not fed with fresh knowledge, it becomes dull. And a dull mind is a dead weapon. You want to be a force, then keep learning. Be the person in the room who always has a new insight, a new solution, a new idea, because you took time to grow your mind while others were scrolling, gossiping, or complaining. Let's take a real life example. Imagine two workers in the same company. They were hired the same day, given the same role, same salary. One worker clocks in, does the minimum, clocks out, and goes home to watch TV every night. The other worker stays curious. He starts reading about industry trends, taking online courses, learning about leadership and systems. Fast forward a year later, the company hits a crisis. Who do you think they promote? Who do you think they call into that emergency meeting? The one who's been learning, growing, preparing. Because when pressure hits, potential rises. And people who've been learning stay ready. Learning keeps you dangerous because it keeps you ahead. The world is changing fast. Technology, business, even relationships. If you're not learning, you're lagging. And let's be clear, no one is going to wait for you to catch up. In today's world, being comfortable is a liability. The more you know, the more you see. The more you see, the more you can create. The more you can create, the more you can lead. It's a chain reaction, but it all starts with learning. Now let's make it even more personal. Think about your relationships. Ever wonder why some people repeat the same toxic cycles again and again? It's not because they're cursed. It's because they never learned. They never studied emotional intelligence. They never learned communication. They never read a single book about self-awareness or boundaries. So they keep bleeding on people who didn't cut them. They keep expecting love, but giving dysfunction. That's why learning matters, not just in business, but in life. You want better relationships? Learn. You want to lead your children into greatness? Learn. You want to break generational patterns? Learn. I once met a man who was a janitor sweeping floors at a university. Most of the students never noticed him. But what they didn't know was that every night after his shift, he would go to the library and read for hours. He studied economics, psychology, history. He learned in silence. He grew in secret. 5 years later, he didn't just leave that job. He launched his own company. Because while people saw a janitor, he was building a CEO mindset. While they saw a mop, he saw a mission. That's the power of learning. That's what makes you dangerous. The world respects people who invest in their minds. When you speak with clarity, when you operate with wisdom, when you solve problems with speed, it's not magic, it's mastery. And then mastery comes from study. The more you learn, the more you refine your voice. The more you refine your voice, the more you shift atmospheres. People stop ignoring you. They start seeking you out. They start asking for your opinion. Why? Because your knowledge makes you valuable. Learning also makes you unpredictable. They think they figured you out. Then suddenly you show up with new skills, a new mindset, a new strategy. You were quiet for months, but during that silence, you were studying. They thought you fell off, but you were upgrading. They laughed at your failure, not knowing you were reading case studies. And when you return, you don't just fit in, you take over. That's why learning keeps you dangerous. It gives you the element of surprise. Look at the people you admire, the inventors, the leaders, the influencers. None of them got there by accident. They devoured books. They asked deep questions. They sat under mentorship. They chased wisdom the way others chase pleasure. And that's why they're winning. They didn't just work harder. They learned deeper. Even in your darkest seasons, when life feels stuck and silent, learning is how you keep moving. When doors close, read. When friends leave, learn. When the plan fails, study the reason why. Because as long as you're learning, you're not losing. You're just loading. And when it's your time, the wisdom you gathered in silence will speak louder than your pain ever did. Growth is intentional, not accidental. Growth is intentional, not accidental. Nothing great in life just happens. You don't wake up one day fluent in wisdom, wrapped in strength, and filled with purpose without choosing to grow. Real growth doesn't come from age. It comes from awareness. It comes from the daily decision to stretch your mind, to confront your weaknesses, and to push beyond comfort. You don't drift into greatness. You discipline your way into it. And until you realize that growth is not automatic, you'll keep waiting for life to do something you were supposed to activate. Growth is not like rain that falls on you while you sleep. It's more like a muscle that demands resistance, sweat, and repetition. If you don't seek it, you won't find it. If you don't plan for it, you'll miss it. Most people want growth, but very few are willing to build a system around it. You grow on purpose. You grow by design. Growth is not a feeling, it's a structure. You must schedule your growth like you schedule your job. You must prioritize it like you prioritize your bills, because your future will be built by the habits you create today. Have you ever seen someone who's been in the same place mentally, emotionally, even spiritually for years? You meet them after 5 years and nothing has changed. Not how they think, not how they speak, not how they dream. They talk about the same regrets, the same excuses, the same enemies. Why? Because they thought growth was automatic. But here's the truth: time doesn't change people, intention does. You could sit in a library for 10 years and remain ignorant if you don't engage with the knowledge. You can go to the gym every day and never get stronger if you're not training with intensity. You can listen to advice every week and still be stuck if you never apply it. Growth is not passive, it is aggressive, it is hungry. It says, I will not leave this season the same. I will extract wisdom from this pain. I will squeeze purpose from this pressure. I will not waste the storm. I will study it. That mindset doesn't come from wishful thinking. It comes from intentional decision-making. Every day you wake up, you're either investing in growth or making excuses for staying small. Let's take a real-world example. Imagine a man who wants to be a powerful public speaker. He watches videos, admires speakers, even buys a microphone. But he never writes a speech. He never practices. He never gets feedback. He keeps saying, one day I'll get there. 5 years go by and he's still in the audience, still dreaming, still clapping for others. Why? Because admiration without intention is deception. You're not growing just because you admire growth. You grow because you work toward it. Compare him to another man. He may not be the most talented, but he wakes up every morning and practices speaking into his phone. He listens to himself. He joins a local Toastmasters club. He reads books on communication. He studies great speeches and learns the rhythm of impact. Every month, he sees a slight improvement. In a year, he's speaking in front of crowds, not because he was lucky, not because he was born gifted, but because he was intentional. He showed up for his future every single day. Growth is also uncomfortable. That's why most people avoid it. You cannot grow and stay safe at the same time. You have to confront your ego. You have to admit you don't know it all. You have to let go of old identities that feel familiar but are limiting. Growth demands ego death. It demands exposure. It demands being stretched in public. But here's the paradox. Your future is hiding behind your fear, and until you're willing to be uncomfortable, you'll never access it. Let's go even deeper. Growth will cost you relationships. Because when you start growing, you'll realize that some people are committed to the version of you that no longer exists. They loved your silence. They loved your insecurity. They loved your availability for drama. But now you're setting boundaries. Now you're asking deeper questions. Now you're too focused to be distracted. And suddenly they say, you've changed. Yes, and that was the point. You don't owe anyone the old version of you just because they're uncomfortable with the new version you've become. Think about the bamboo tree. For 5 years, you water it, fertilize it, and see almost no visible growth. It seems like nothing is happening. But what you don't see is that beneath the soil, it's building roots. It's expanding its foundation. Then in year 5, it shoots up 80 feet in 6 weeks. That's how growth works. It's silent before it's seen, but it's intentional all along. Are you building roots, or are you just waiting for results? Every expert was once a beginner. Every master once fumbled. Every giant once doubted. But they made one decision daily to grow anyway. To read one more chapter, to ask one more question, to review one more mistake. Growth doesn't shout, it whispers. It whispers at 5 a.m. when no one is watching. It whispers when you're tempted to procrastinate, but choose discipline. It whispers when you turn off Netflix and turn on purpose. It whispers when you choose progress over popularity. Growth is never convenient, but it is always worth it. You can either fight for your limitations or fight for your future, but you can't do both. If you want to grow, you have to be obsessed with it. You have to be willing to be misunderstood, criticized, even mocked, because most people fear what they don't understand. But that's none of your concern. Let them talk while you evolve. Let them mock while you build. Because one day they'll say, how did you do it? And your answer will be simple, I grew on purpose. What you know determines how far you'll go. What you know determines how far you'll go. You don't rise in life by chance. You rise by understanding. You don't conquer life by talent alone. You conquer it by knowledge. The difference between someone who's stuck and someone who's soaring isn't always strength or opportunity. It's what they know. Knowledge is a passport. It grants you access to places your background couldn't take you, to rooms your family name can't open, and to levels your past never imagined. If you want to go further, you've got to learn deeper. Think about this. A poor man with knowledge becomes a wealthy thinker. A shy woman with knowledge becomes a bold leader. A broken teenager with knowledge becomes a world changer. Because when your mind expands, your life follows. Every time you learn something new, your future gets larger, your thinking gets sharper, your decisions become more accurate. What you know determines how far you go, because you cannot outperform your mindset. You cannot grow beyond your revelation. And you cannot escape a prison if you don't know the door exists. Have you ever seen someone working hard, grinding day and night, but still going nowhere? It's not because they're lazy. It's because they're missing strategic knowledge. They're busy, but not effective. They're active, but not advancing, because they don't know what they need to know. Hard work is honorable, but it must be paired with right information. You can be the hardest working person in the room, but if you're climbing the wrong wall, you'll still end up frustrated at the top. And that's the tragedy of ignorance. It demands energy, but delivers disappointment. Let's go deeper. You're not broke because you lack money. You're broke because you lack the financial literacy that creates money. You're not stuck because of life. You're stuck because you don't yet know the principle that will unlock your next level. That's why you must chase knowledge like your life depends on it, because it does. You don't just read for fun, you read to survive. You don't just learn for applause, you learn for accuracy. You don't just study for school, you study for life, because knowledge is the one investment that guarantees infinite return. Let me give you a real example. There's a young man working at a hotel front desk. Every day he checks guests in, carries their bags, and watches them drive off in cars he can't afford. But instead of complaining, he starts reading business books between shifts. He studies real estate after hours. He listens to podcasts during his lunch break. He takes online courses with the little money he has. 2 years later, he launches a small Airbnb business with savings and strategy. Fast forward another 2 years, and now he owns multiple properties. Why? Because he learned what others refused to study. His growth wasn't magic, it was mental. Your mind is either your prison or your passport. And the key is knowledge. People can take your job, they can take your car, they can take your status. But if you've got knowledge, they can't stop your comeback. If you've got wisdom, they can't rob your future. That's why the most powerful thing you can ever do is invest in your mind. Your mind is your engine. If it's empty, your life stalls. If it's full, your life accelerates. So ask yourself, what are you filling your mind with every day? So many people wake up and check their phones before they check their minds. They scroll social media before they scroll through their own vision. They binge entertainment, but starve their education. And they wonder why their life feels small. You can't feed your mind junk and expect your future to be elite. You can't entertain yourself into elevation. If you want to rise, you've got to study like your destiny depends on it, because it does. Let me tell you another story. A woman was working as a cashier in a grocery store every day, scanning items, watching customers walk out with carts full of dreams. But inside, she had more. She believed there was something greater, so she started taking night classes. It wasn't easy, she was tired, she had kids, but she kept going. Year by year, class by class, failure by lesson, she kept learning. Today, she's a business consultant helping companies restructure for success. She went from counting coupons to creating strategies, all because of what she chose to know. And here's the truth, no one is gonna force you to grow. No one is gonna beg you to become great. You've got to want it for yourself. You've got to wake up and say, I refuse to live beneath what I'm capable of. That fire has to burn inside you so deeply that even when you're tired, you study. Even when you're broke, you invest. Even when you're afraid, you ask questions. Because what you know will take you where motivation can't. Ignorance is expensive. It costs you time, money, relationships, and peace. The wrong decision made in ignorance can delay your destiny by 5 years. One missed principle can cost you an opportunity that never returns. That's why people who grow far in life aren't just talented, they're informed. They studied the terrain, they prepared for the battle, they trained their minds before they took the leap. Look at the people dominating industries today. They didn't just get there by luck, they studied their way there. They read while others slept, they asked while others stayed silent, they practiced while others played. And now they're reaping rewards that others only dream about. Because what you know determines how far you'll go. Make learning a daily ritual, make learning a daily ritual, not a random event. Treat it like brushing your teeth, non-negotiable. You wouldn't skip brushing your teeth for 3 days and expect a fresh breath. So why do you skip feeding your mind and expect clarity, growth, and success? Your mind is a garden. If you don't plant purposefully, weeds grow automatically. Every day you neglect to learn, you're letting weeds take over your potential. But every day you read, listen, reflect, and grow, you're cultivating greatness within you. You've got 24 hours. Question is, how much of that time is intentionally feeding your future? We binge, watch shows for 4 hours, but claim we don't have 30 minutes to read a chapter. We scroll aimlessly through other people's lives, but won't sit still long enough to reflect on our own. We fill our minds with entertainment, but starve it of elevation. That's not a ritual, it's a distraction. And distraction is the silent enemy of destiny. Make learning your anchor. When life is chaotic, center yourself by learning. When you feel confused, feed your mind. When you feel defeated, don't just cry. Study your way out of the valley. Imagine starting your morning not with gossip or comparison, but with a 10-minute growth session, reading something that sharpens you, journaling something that stretches you, or watching something that shifts your perspective. Imagine what that would do to your confidence, to your conversations, to your choices. It's not about the amount of time, it's about the consistency of the investment. Even 15 minutes of focused learning a day compounds into unstoppable transformation. Think of a bodybuilder. They don't become strong overnight. They hit the gym consistently. They lift every day. They eat with intention, and slowly their muscles begin to show. That's what happens when you make learning a ritual. Your mental muscles grow. Your thinking elevates. Your vocabulary expands. Your ideas get sharper. And the version of you that once second-guessed everything starts making bold moves. There's a young man I once knew who worked in construction. He didn't have a college degree. Didn't come from a wealthy background. But every lunch break, he had a book in his hand. Every night, he watched YouTube videos on leadership and mindset. He kept a notebook of lessons he learned from every book, podcast, or experience. Years passed. One day, that same man walked into the office not as a laborer, but as a project manager. He didn't wait for someone to choose him. He trained himself daily until he couldn't be ignored. That's the power of making learning a ritual. It raises your standard. It opens closed doors. It rewrites your identity. The difference between the average and the excellent is not opportunity, it's preparation. The world doesn't reward intentions, it rewards execution. And you can't execute effectively on an empty mind. That's why you don't read for fun, you read to fight. You're fighting for your future, for your freedom, for your financial peace. You don't study because it's cute. You study because without it, your talent stays stuck and your ideas never take form. Learning isn't a hobby, it's a survival tool in a world that changes daily. Some people wait for motivation to start learning. That's backwards. Learning produces motivation. The more you know, the more you want to grow. The more insight you gain, the more empowered you feel. There's nothing more energizing than that moment when a new concept clicks in your brain and you realize, I can do this. That's how confidence is born, not by waiting to feel brave, but by training your mind until courage becomes your new normal. One woman I admire used to be a single mother struggling to make ends meet. She didn't have time to go back to college. But she made it a daily ritual to read 10 pages every morning, right after her prayer and coffee. She kept a folder of lessons she could apply in parenting, budgeting, and side hustling. 5 years later, she owns a thriving online business, teaching other single mothers how to break out of survival mode. She didn't take a leap of luck. She took daily steps of learning until her life caught up with her mindset. Make learning a ritual because your future is watching. Your future children are watching. Your future team, your future clients, your future self, they are all depending on the choices you're making today. When you study today, you build security tomorrow. When you read today, you gain clarity tomorrow. When you grow today, you step into levels tomorrow that ignorance would have denied you. And that's why you must approach learning with the seriousness of someone preparing for war. Because in many ways, you are. The world will offer you noise, but learning gives you clarity. Life will throw confusion at you, but a disciplined learner finds direction in the storm. Life will try to break you, but when you have fed your mind daily with wisdom, with strategies, with purpose, you become unshakable. You stop reacting and start responding. You stop following and start leading. You stop wandering and start walking with intentionality. It's time to see learning not as a chore, but as your divine routine. It's the gym of the mind, the bank of the future, the compass of your calling. You may not see results on day one, but keep going day by day, word by word. Lesson by lesson, you are building something invisible that will soon become undeniable. Keep showing up to your learning altar. That's where transformation begins. That's where mental chains break. That's where average dies and excellence is born. That's where the ordinary version of you gets replaced with the person you were destined to become. Don't just learn for knowledge, learn for impact. Don't just learn for knowledge, learn for impact. Knowledge is not power until it is applied. We've been conditioned to believe that just because we know something, we've accomplished something. But knowing is only the beginning. It's what you do with what you know that separates the average from the impactful. You can have a library of books in your head, but if your life, your behavior, your habits, and your decisions remain the same, you haven't grown. You've just become a storage unit of unused potential. You see, there are people who can quote every success book ever written, but still can't get out of their own way. They can recite theories, memorize quotes, even teach others, but their life is stuck on the same level because they confuse information with transformation. Information is cheap. It's everywhere. You can Google anything in seconds. But transformation requires intention. It requires the courage to say, I'm going to take this principle, this idea, this truth, and I'm going to do something with it. That's when your learning begins to matter. Impact starts when you stop asking, what do I know? and start asking, what am I doing with what I know? Imagine someone studying for years how to swim. They know every stroke. They understand the physics of water. They've watched every YouTube tutorial and taken notes on every technique, but they've never jumped in the pool. That's not growth. That's delay disguised as preparation. There comes a point where learning must collide with living. You've got to jump in the pool. You've got to apply what you've been storing. The water will feel cold. You may mess up the stroke. You may sink a little, but you'll grow in ways books could never teach you. There's a man I once knew who read 5 books a month on business strategy. He had shelves lined with knowledge, but every time you asked him when he would launch his business, he said, I'm still learning. 5 years passed. Still learning, still getting ready, but no action, no fruit, no impact. He wasn't learning anymore. He was hiding, because learning without action becomes a form of fear, a way to stay safe, a way to stay in your comfort zone while convincing yourself that you're growing. Real growth is uncomfortable. It demands risk. It demands stepping out into what's unknown and trusting what you've learned to carry you. Learning for impact means studying with intention. It means you don't just read a book to finish it. You read to extract a lesson, and then you apply that lesson to your life. You don't just listen to a podcast and say, that was deep. You pause, reflect, and ask, how can I implement this truth today, even if it's just one change, one shift in your schedule, one new conversation, one habit replaced. That's how impact is made, little by little, day by day, until you from last year wouldn't recognize the version of you today. Learning for impact means taking responsibility for your growth. You stop waiting for a teacher, a coach, or a mentor to spoon-feed you success. You realize the greatest school is life. Every experience is a classroom. Every failure is a textbook. Every challenge is a test. And the answers are inside you, waiting to be activated by the knowledge you've consumed. The world doesn't need more people who know stuff. It needs more people who live what they know, who embody the principles they've studied, who walk with the discipline they've learned, who lead with the wisdom they've acquired. There's a young woman who worked in customer service at a retail store. Her dream was to become a life coach, but she didn't wait for a platform. She took notes every night from coaching books and motivational videos. The next day, she practiced those principles on herself, how she spoke, how she handled stress, how she helped difficult customers. Her coworkers noticed. Her manager noticed. Soon, she was promoted to trainer. Then she started a YouTube channel sharing daily growth tips. She didn't wait for a perfect moment. She learned and she acted. That's what learning for impact looks like. The goal is not to be impressive, it's to be effective. The most powerful learners are not the ones with the biggest vocabularies or the fanciest quotes. They're the ones who take what they learn and do something with it. They serve better, they lead better, they think deeper, they speak with clarity, they make decisions from wisdom, not emotion. And because of that, their lives become magnetic. People trust them. Opportunities follow them. Not because they have all the answers, but because they act on what they do know with excellence. You've got to make a decision that you're not just going to be a hero of wisdom, you're going to be a door. That every lesson you learn is a seed you plant in the soil of your life. And the fruit of that seed is determined by how you water it, how you nurture it, how you act on it. You want to be powerful. Start applying what you know. You want to change your life. Start implementing the things you've been learning for years but have been too scared or too distracted to try. Take that risk. Start that habit. Cut off that toxic influence. Wake up earlier. Change your environment. Speak up. Step out. Move forward. Because when you start using knowledge as a tool and not just a trophy, that's when life changes. That's when your words start to carry weight. That's when your presence shifts atmospheres. That's when your decisions create waves. And that's when your name is no longer just known, it's respected. Not because of what you knew, but because of what you dared to do with it. The difference between an average life and a phenomenal life is not what you're born with. It's what you choose to grow with. You were not born to just wake up, scroll through your phone, go to work, eat, and sleep. You were born with a destiny, and that destiny will never be unlocked by passive living. It will only unfold when you decide to focus your energy on reading, learning, and growing every single day, not when it's convenient, not when life feels easy, but especially when it's hard, when it's painful, and when no one is clapping for you. Greatness doesn't scream, it whispers. And the people who achieve it are the ones who hear the whisper in the quiet places of discipline and daily improvement. The secret to your next level is not in some distant opportunity. It's in what you do with your day, the books you choose, the mindset you build, the habits you protect, the battles you fight in silence, the lessons you squeeze out of every failure. You don't need a bigger platform. You need a deeper commitment. You don't need more applause. You need more focus. Stop waiting for someone to rescue you. Stop blaming your past. Your pain is not your prison, it's your preparation. And the more you grow, the more you'll realize that everything that tried to break you was secretly building you. Growth is never glamorous. It's messy, it's lonely, it's silent. But the result is transformation so powerful, it makes the struggle worth it. Let this sink in. Your future is hidden in your daily routine. That's not just a quote, it's a mirror. Look at what you do every single day, and you'll see exactly where you're headed. You don't become disciplined by accident. You become disciplined by choosing growth when comfort calls. You become focused when you say no to distractions that scream and yes to the voice of purpose that whispers. And hear this, success is not owned, it's leased. And the rent is due every day. You don't graduate from growth. You don't outgrow the need to learn. The moment you stop learning is the moment you start dying, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So pick up that book. Reflect on what you've read. Act on what you've learned. Your destiny is waiting for a version of you that doesn't just know. It applies, it lives, it breathes wisdom. You must understand life is not a game of luck. It's a war of preparation. While others are sleeping, you must be sharpening. While others waste time, you must be investing it. While others complain, you must be creating. The people we admire, those who shift nations, shake industries, inspire generations, they didn't get there because they were lucky. They got there because they showed up every day. Not with perfection, but with purpose. Not with applause, but with alignment. Your hunger will determine your harvest. Your discipline will determine your doors. Your character will determine your capacity. And your growth will determine your greatness. So don't chase fame, chase formation. Let your mind be stretched. Let your perspective evolve. Let your thinking become sharper than ever. Because when your mind grows, your life follows. Stop saying someday. Someday is not a day of the week. Start saying now. Now is where champions are made. Now is where destinies are born. Now is when your future begins to unfold. Don't die with books still left unread. Don't leave this earth with wisdom you never used. Don't bury your potential just because life tried to bury you. There's a fire in you, a hunger in you, a seed of greatness planted in your soul, and it is watered by every decision to grow. Feed it daily, fuel it with knowledge, stretch it with new experiences, sharpen it with uncomfortable challenges. Your life is your message to the world. Make it worth reading. When people remember you, let them say, that person didn't just live, they grew every single day. You were not built to break. You were built to rise, and growth is the ladder. Read like your life depends on it. Learn like the world is watching. Grow like your future is depending on today, because it is. Remember, empires are not built in a day, but they are built daily. You are the architect. Start building.